Okay, Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Makkos Daf Ches. Today's Daf Yomi is dedicated for Shmir for the Chayalim. That's all for the Shul Yemeni Yeshua for Am Yisrael. We're going to start on the bottom of Zayin Beis 7b at the Mishnah. The Mishnah discusses a person who comes to use an axe, and it says in the Torah that if a person comes upon his friend in the forest to chop wood, and he picks up his hand to chop the wood, and the iron separates from the wood, and it finds his friend and dies. So what does it mean? Is it that the wood chip kills the friend, or is it that the iron from the axe kills the friend? So it says the Mishnah, Nishmat Habarzel Mi Kato, if the iron falls off of the axe, Vaharag, Rabbi Omer Eino Goa. Rabbi says under those circumstances he does not go to a city of refuge. He does not go into an exile because the Mishnah is going to say, the Gemara is going to explain because this is horrible mazes. This is too much, almost intentional. The Chachamim want go, whereas the Chachamim say no, that is a case where he goes into exile. But let's say Mina Eitz Mispakeya. Let's say it was a piece of the wood, the tree that he was chopping, is what jumps off and kills the person. Rabbi Omer Goa. Rabbi Goa says he goes into exile. The Chachamim Omer Eino Goa. But the Chachamim say under those circumstances that he does not go into exile, and Rashi's position is because that is an onis, that's an accident. It's too much of an accident. This is all Rashi's approach. So it says the Gemara, Tanya, Amarim, Rabbi L'Chachamim. Rabbi says to the Chachamim, L'Chinema v'nashal abarzel mi etzo. Rabbi says, does it say that the iron will fall off of its wood? Nalu nemar elamino eitz. It means to say it falls off of the wood. And so therefore, we obviously have to interpret the verse that it's saying that from the axe, a piece of wood fell off and killed him. So Rabbi also continues, it says in the verse, in the continuation, and it says eitz above. It says just like the first time it mentions eitz, it refers to the tree. It's from the wood that's falling off the tree. So to the eitz, it says below is it's from the wood that's falling off the tree. So now we come back to a dispute that we've had also in the beginning of Sanhedrin, and that is Yesh Emo Mikra or Yesh Emo Mesoras. We'll see what this means. Amar Barashi, Amar Rabu Shneim Mikra Echadar. So both Rabbi and the Chachamim, both Rabbi who says that the eitz refers to the piece of wood from the tree, and the Chachamim who say it refers to the wood that's attached to the axe. Both of them are expounding the same verse. The verse says, "V'nashal barzel mina eitz." So Rabbi Savar Yesh Emo Mesoras. So Rabbi says we follow the Mesoras. The Mesoras is that we follow the way the word is written and not the way the word is read. And since it's written v'nishal ksiv, as though there is a yud there, meaning to say that it caused a piece of wood to fall off the tree. Therefore, Rabbi says only in that case will we go into exile. Rabbanan Savri Yesh Emo Mikra. The Rabbanan are in the position we follow the way we read it. Vinashal Karina. We read it as Vinashal, that the iron fell off, that the iron of the axe fell off of the wood that was the handle. And so therefore the Chachamim are in the position that only under that circumstance does he go into exile. So we see that Rabbi followed Yesh Aim or Mesoretz. For Rabbanan, Savri Yesh Aim or Mikra. The Rabbanan say we follow the way we read it, and the Rabbi says we follow the way it is written. So for Rabbi Yesh Aim or Mesoretz, really, does Rabbi really say we follow the way it is written? V'amar Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yehuda ben Roitz, U'Bei Shammai, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Kiva, Kula Svirle, Yesh Aim or Mikra. You say that Rabbi follows the way it is read, not the way it is written. So the Gemara says, Hainu de Gamraluva. Oh, that's why Rabbi says a Chachamim additional reason. He says that it is basically, he gives two reasons. Rabbi says, Tanya, Amar Rabbi Chachinemer, Vavo, Nemer Almanates, V'od Nemar, Eitz Lamata. The Nemar Eitz Lamata. That's why he gives the two reasons. Amar Papa, or on top of Chesam and Aleph, 4 lines from the top, Rav Papa says, Mandashana Pisa Ladikla. So let's say a person took a Pisa, which is a clump of earth, and he threw it at the tree. And after he threw the earth at the tree, the Asar Tamri, the Azal Tamri. So after he threw the earth at the tree, what happened was the dates fell off of the tree, and the dates went and they killed a person. The Rebbe Rabbanan. This is the exact same dispute as between Rebbe and the Rabbanan, because the falling of the dates off the tree is like a wood chip that falls off of a tree and kills somebody. So according to Rebbe, the person who throws the earth has to go into exile, because that's exactly like the case of a person who chops the wood and the wood chip falls off. And so it's considered like he killed them. According to the Chachamim, this is going to be considered like he's an ones, like it's a derivative of his power, not direct power. And so therefore he does not go into exile. Pshita, isn't this obvious? So the Gemara says, no, Mao the Tema could call Kocho Dummy. You might have thought that even according to Rebbe, it's going to be considered like it's indirect. Kamashma, that's not the case. So the Gemara says, okay, I'll call Kocho or Rebbe. So according to Rebbe, if you would have thought that this is not, so according to Rebbe, what is indirect? So the Gemara says indirect is could go into shadi piece. So you need another step in there. You throw a clod of earth, and it hits a wood, a branch. And the branch goes ahead and strikes the cluster of grapes. So meaning you need one more step in there. You don't throw it to the dates and then those fall off and kill somebody, but rather you throw it to a branch which hits the dates and then falls off and kills somebody. That is what Rebbe would say is indirect, and he's not liable under those circumstances. Okay, we're up to the next Mishnah. Somebody throws a stone into the public domain and it kills somebody. Then he has to go into exile. If at the moment that the stone left his hand, that this other person picked up stuck out his head, the kibla, and then retrieved the stone that was flying off, already is that potter, then we're going to say it's exempt. Let's say he threw the stone into his courtyard of Harag and he killed somebody. If the person who was struck by the stone had permission to go there, then then he goes into exile. But if the person who got killed did not have permission to be there, goa. He does not go, then the person who killed him does not go into exile. As it says, comes upon his friend in the forest. That's what the verse says about the paradigm case of killing in a city of refuge. Just like the forest, both the one who killed and the one who was killed have permission to be there. It has to be a case where they both have permission to be there. This comes to exclude the case of a courtyard that the person who was killed has no permission to be there. Abashal comes along and says, now he's not arguing with the Tanakama according to commentaries, he's just adding on a new halacha. So he says, from the fact that it says in the verse that he had come into the forest to chop wood, we see from here that the person who killed does not go into exile unless he did it in a similar manner to chopping wood. So Abba Shaul says, just like chopping wood is something that person has permission to do, meaning to say it's not obligatory. I've called Rishos. So to anything that he has permission to is not obligatory. Is when he goes into exile. Yotza Av Makkos beno harav odes talmido v'shliach present. So it excludes the case of a father who's striking his son, a rebbe who's striking his student, or an agent of the court. And all these cases, in the time of the Mishnah, it was believed that these were obligatory actions. And so therefore, you don't go into exile for doing any of these disciplinary acts. So the Gemara says, if this person throws the stone into the public domain and he kills somebody, why does he go in? Why does he go into exile? Or I'm amazed who it's an intentional act. So Amar Rav Shmuel, Bar Yitzchak besoser es koslo. No, we're talking about a case where he is taking down his wall, and so therefore some stones from the wall fell into the public domain, and killed somebody. And so under these circumstances, we say that he's obligated to go into exile. But why? He should have looked. Why is that? Why is that not amazing? He should have looked. But so stressed coastal Delilah. And I was taking down at night, so he couldn't look at night. So the Gemara says Delilah nami Bailele. At night also he should have looked. The Gemara says, but so stressed coastal Ashma. No, he was taking it down into an area of trash. And so therefore he wasn't responsible to look. Well, what kind of trash place is this? If this is a place where the majority goes, well, then he's negligent. And if he's not common for people to go there, honestly, then it's an accident. So no, it's a trash place. And people usually take out the stuff at night, and they don't take out the stuff during the day. But sometimes there's somebody who goes along and sits there even during the day. And so therefore, I'm just talking about a case where a person is taking out removing the rubble from his wall during the day. And so therefore it's accidental. He's not considered negligent. Because people don't typically go there during the day. But he's also not going to be considered an accident because once in a while somebody goes along and sits there, and so sits there. So we're saying that is considered to be shogeg, accidental, with negligence, and so therefore he goes into exile. And Eliezer ben Yaakov on there, Eliezer ben Yaakov says, if when he finds the stone, the guy stuck out his hand, he's exempt. Tanu Rabbanan, what's the reason for Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? Because it says matzah, that if you throw that the piece of wood finds his friend and kills him. Prat this excludes a case where a person made himself available. If he finds him, he's liable to go into exile, but not where he makes himself available. Mekanam Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. If the other guy stuck out his head in the place it wasn't supposed to be, then the guy who killed him is exempt. Well, name the matzah meikar. Mashma goes on a tangent. We need to say that matzah always means that it was already there. But matzah, prat matzah, this comes to exclude a case where it was already there in the first place. But what about the fact that we know that there's halacha? We know that there's halacha that when it comes to redeeming a field, a person can redeem his inherited field. And that's to say, if a person sold his field, that was an inherited field. And the person doesn't have any money to redeem it. But if afterwards he gets money, he can redeem that field immediately for the purchaser. So it says, matzah, pratal matzah. That's if he didn't have the money. If he didn't have the money when the field was sold, but if he had the money in his hand at that moment, he's not allowed to force the guy to sell it back. Basically, so that he does this. We learn from here that if a person sold his field and he doesn't have the money to redeem it, and then he sells another field, which is far away, and now he wants to redeem the field that's closer, he can't do it because these were in his hand at the moment that he sold the first field. And we don't say, well, matzah kadei gedu also. So we see from here that matzah means something new, that he found a new field, and not something that was there initially. So Rava says, no, we have to go by the context. With respect to redeeming a field, goes by the verse. It says like he got money, he found money which he didn't have initially. Means he got the money now. But here, with respect to exile, it's also from the context. It's like the forest. Just like a forest, something that he had initially. He must have had to have been there originally. So now we say, as it says the Mishnah, Zorik as Evan, somebody throws a stone. Avashol says, just like chopping wood is discretionary activity, and for that you go into exile, so too, anything that's discretionary comes to school. The case of a father who strikes his son, or a rabbi who strikes a student, or somebody who's an agent of the court, these are obligatory actions or mitzvot, so therefore they don't go into exile if they kill the person that way. So first the Gemara says, how do you know that chopping wood is in the verse is discretionary activity? Maybe it's obligatory, maybe it's a mitzvah. Don't mechatavas eitzim de sukkah. Mechatavas eitzim de marach. Maybe you're chopping wood to build a sukkah, or you're chopping wood to start a fire on the altar. The verse so says, you have to redeem that the person goes into exile on their way. No, kivan chatov of mitzvah. No, because it's not a mitzvah to chop wood for a sukkah. Because let's say you find the wood already chopped, you wouldn't be obligated to cut it. Hashanami love mitzvah. So also now where you find, so chopping the wood is not a mitzvah. So it's Ravina Rava. So Ravina challenges Rava. It says in our Mishnah that it's something that excludes a person who kills his son by striking him, or Rabbi who strikes a student, to shliach bezin, an agent to the court. If you say that if you find wood for a sukkah, you don't have to chop wood, so therefore chopping wood is not a mitzvah. Let's say your son is a well-behaved kid, the student is a smart student, and the agent of the court, well, leave out the agent of the court, but if the person is behaving, then it's not a mitzvah to strike him. So therefore, say that the striking is not a mitzvah. The Gemara says no. Also, with respect to a father strikes his son, afagav de gomer, even though if the son is acting properly, it's a mitzvah. It's still a mitzvah for the father to strike him. But nowadays, I just want to be clear, because sometimes the Gemara talks about things and we have to be clear that it doesn't apply anymore. Nowadays, many of the posts can say it's completely inappropriate under any circumstances for a parent to strike a child. Rava says that which Rava said, and he said that which I said is not correct, because it says in the verse, Asher Yavos and we learn from this, from Asher, the E by I'll be by loyal. If he wants to go into the forest, he can. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Mitzvah. If you're going to say that it is in fact a mitzvah, would it really be okay to go in? So we need to say that the verse is really only talking about optional, and so therefore he doesn't go into exile. The Gemara says, whenever it says Asher, it means if he wants. What about the case where it says a person who became tamei, who goes into the temple? It says a man who was tamei and he did not purify himself. So according to you, it says Asher. If he wants to become tamei, he can. If he doesn't, he doesn't. So if that's the case, so if that's the case, a person who became tamei for a mitzvah, like he saw a dead body, would you say that he is exempt if he goes in the temple when he's in a state of ritual impurity? So he says, no, Shani Hasam, that case is different to Amar Kral, because the pasuk says, tamei, it says he will be tamei, which means mikomakom, he is tamei. So again, he says, how could you say for the word somebody comes to me from a mitzvah? Only by way of the Tanya, don't we learn that word tamei or rabbos tful yom comes to exclude even a person immersed that day for his tumah? He's still not tar until the evening. Tumas Bo, Rabbos Mechusar Kippurim, that even the person who requires um, it requires a carbon, he's still going to be chayev. So Amar way Ana the Od Kamino says no. I learn out from the fact that the pasuk says Od to Masabo. So that's how I dash it. There are some who say aha, that they say from that this discussion of Rava is learned out from the fact that it says Sheish Siyamim Tavol B'Yom Hashvi Tishbos B'Charishu B'Katzir Tishbos. When the plowing and the harvesting you should cease. And there's a dispute amongst the Tanaim. What are you ceasing from? According to Rabbi Akiva, that the rest of the verse refers to refraining from work on the sabbatical year. Rabbi Akiva Omer Ein Tzarich Omar Charish Shal Shvius v'Katzir Shal Shvius. It doesn't need to prohibit the plowing of the sabbatical year and the harvesting. Sharei Kvar Nemar Sadachavot is Rabbi Kamachavot is more. So it's prohibiting the plowing on the eve of the sabbatical year and the harvesting on the eve of the sabbatical year. Rabbi Shmuel Omer Ma Charish Rishus Av Katzir Rishus Yotza Katzira Omer Shum Mitzvah. So Rabbi Shmuel says that it's just prohibiting to do on Shabbos the optional harvesting and plowing, but the harvesting of the Omer, which is a mitzvah. And here we're talking about now, last night was the third day of the Omer, but that you do even on Shabbos. How do we know that the verse is talking about plowing of Rishus? Dilma Charishas Omer, the mitzvah, maybe it's possible talking about the case, the plowing of the field for the purpose of the Omer, which is a mitzvah, and still the Torah is saying you're not allowed to do it. And so therefore also the harvesting is not allowed to do. Amrulay, no. Kiven de matzah charush eno choresh. Since if you found the plow, if you find it field, you don't have to plow it. Therefore, we'll have mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah. Just like the chopping of the wood. So now it goes back to this what we say as before. Yatza av hamakas beno. Rav Rodas Talmidu shliach bezdin. What about the fact that since the prophet was learned it would not be a mitzvah to strike him? Also, now it's not a mitzvah. Gemara says, no, it's still a mitzvah to strike him. And then Rava retracted, said, Kitsira dumya de harisha. Harvesting is similar to the plowing. Just like plowing, if you find a plow, you don't plow. Also, harvesting is not a mitzvah because just like plowing is not a mitzvah. Mitzvah matzah kotzer eno kotzer mitzvah liktor. And if you want to say that the verse is talking about the harvesting of the omer, which is a mitzvah, but that's not the. How can you say that if you find it harvested, you don't harvest it? So we say mitzvah liktor. It's still going to be a mitzvah to harvest and to bring it. And so therefore it's not talking about the harvesting of the Omer, but the harvesting of a Rishus. And so we see that the harvesting of the mitzvah pushes away Shabbat. So now the Mishnah says, Ha'av goel al yidei ben. A father has to go into exile if he Rahman al-Tzlan kills his son. Va'ben goel al yidei and his son that goes into exile for Rahman al-Tzlan kills his father. I call goel al yidei Yisrael. Everybody goes into exile if they kill a regular Jew. Yisrael going on Yidayim. Yisrael goes in if he kills him then. Chutz miger toshav. Except if a Yisrael kills a ger toshav, a non-Jew who's living in the community and accepts the laws, then he does not go into exile. But the Ritva says he's killed. He doesn't go into exile. Meaning to say, if the Ger Toshav kills a Jew, he doesn't go into exile, but rather he is killed. The Ger Toshav ain't goa al yedei Ger Toshav. And the Ger Toshav, the first case is if a Jew kills a Ger Toshav, he does not go into exile, but rather Ritva says he's killed. But a Ger Toshav ain't goa al yedei Ger Toshav. Ger Toshav only goes into exile if he kills another Ger Toshav. So Ha'av go al yidei haben. Father goes into exile if he kills his son. Didn't we just say that if a father strikes his son, he doesn't go into exile? So the Gemara says, no, the Gamir. No, that we're talking about a case that if the son was learned and the father had no reason to strike him, then he goes into exile. Didn't we say that if he's still doing a mitzvah? The Gemara says, no. Our mission is not talking about a father who's teaching his son Torah, but rather B'shulia Dinagri. We're talking about basically a carpenter's apprentice that he's teaching him carpentry, and that's not a mitzvah to strike his son. And so therefore, if he strikes him, he goes into exile. Why are you talking about? He's giving him a craft. He's teaching him. Gemara says, no, the Gemara he knows he has something else. He already knows a different test, so the father is not responsible to teach him. Ben Av. Is it really the case that the son goes into exile for killing his father? Didn't we say Mak and Nefesh, Prat Viv? That it says that if he strikes his father, he doesn't go into exile. Amar Rav Kana Kasha. Rabbi Shimon HaRabbanan. It's a dispute. Rabbi Shimon the Amar Chanek Chamor Misai. Of course, Rabbi Shimon, we learned in Sanhedrin, strangulation is more severe than execution by the sword. Shigas Saif Nitnal Kapara. A person who strikes somebody with the sword, he has an atonement by going to exile. Shigas Chanek or Nitnal Kapara. But if he strikes him with accidentally and gets Chanek, then he doesn't get kapara from this action. And so therefore, if he strikes his father, which he would get strangulation, he doesn't go into exile. Or Rabbanan would say decapitation is more severe than strangulation. If somebody strikes his father, that gets decapitation. And he can get the atonement by going to exile. No, it comes to exclude a person who makes a wound in his father accidentally. So I mean, he might have thought giving the amazing since if he did it intentionally, he goes into exile. Then also intentionally, since if he did intentionally, he's executed. But also accidentally goes into exile. Kamash one, and we don't say that. That the law of exile is only somebody who kills accidentally, but not somebody who does other actions. Hakol Golan Ali Israel. Everybody goes into exile through the actions of a Jew. Israel Golan Ali Dayan, and the Jew goes into exile if he executes them. Hakol Golan Ali Israel. Everybody goes into exile for killing a Jew. Asuye Mai. Asuye Eved V'Kusi. So if an Eved or a Kuti kill a Jew, they go into an exile. Tanina Al the Tanur Rabbanan. Eved Kusi go Eved locally de Israel. That we have a bride. We learned in our Mishnah that an Eved and Kusi go into exile and they get lashes through killing a Jew. We shall go over like the Kusi Eved. Bishlam makes sense. Eved Kusi go Al de Israel. It makes sense that the Eved and the Kusi go into exile for killing the Jew because Woke, and so too, he gets lashes because it says Goa. That's the katle where he kills him accidentally. Vilokan, where does he get lashes? Delightia. If he curses the Jew with the name of God, Elisrael, Goa Vilokai Vekusi. Well, how does the Jew go get exile and lashes? Bishlam Goa the katle. I understand he gets exile and kills him. Elokan Mai. Delightia. Why is he prohibited to curse him? You're only not allowed to curse the person who does your actions, but not if he's an Eved or Kuti. No, where the Jew testifies falsely against him, and then he is found to be an Eid Zoman. And Gemara says the Kavasi Eved Eved but that can't apply to a slave. He's not capable of giving testimony. Now, what are we talking about here? He struck him. That we're talking about a case where the Jew struck the Ever Kuti, or they struck him, and blow that there's no monetary damages because it's less than a pruta. So then we give lashes. I mean, say that if you strike him, that's not worth a penny, then you get the lashes under those circumstances. Okay, there's a lot of difficult ideas in this daf. There's also many ideas fundamentally that relate to Pesach. What's the fundamental idea that relates to Pesach is the city of refuge, the Yer Mikwot, which is the idea that you can be redeemed and that there's a place to go for redemption. So that's like the concept of Pesach. Stop the recording here.